I'm Scott Lucas. This is today's EA Worldview on Iran. Is this the breakout of internet freedom? This week there has been a flutter, a Twitter flutter, a Facebook flutter, a flutter across the internet that perhaps Tehran is opening up the World Wide Web after 4 years of shutting it down. On Monday, suddenly, correspondents in Tehran from the Washington Post and the New York Times found that they could access Twitter without using virtual private networks. So did many Iranians. And Iranians could use Facebook. And they could access websites from the United States, from Europe, websites on politics as well as entertainment that had been shut down to them since 2009. So is it the flutter of freedom? Or is there something bigger that's at work here? Say that people who may not really want freedom for the internet have decided they need to use social media in a bigger political fight within Tehran. 1. The Twitter revolution. In 2009, there was another flutter. It was a flutter after the disputed presidential election, when amidst mass protest, some Iranians, and many Iranians outside Iran, took to Twitter to express their grievances against the regime. This was given the rather misleading label of Twitter revolution. It wasn't a revolution, it was merely a tool to explain what was happening and to express hopes for what might occur when the protests were repressed, when there was not reform in Iran, but merely a restriction on people's freedoms. Then the Twitter revolution disappeared, but not completely. What the experience of 2009 showed was that social media is important in spreading a message within Iran and getting that message outside of Iran to other countries. And so it was that in the spring of 2013, for another presidential election, that Twitter was not shut down. It was used by almost all presidential candidates, not just the reformist candidate Hassan Rouhani, who eventually won the election, but by so-called hardliners, like a man named Saeed Jalili, one of the most anti-American politicians in Iran. The former President Hashemi Rafsanjani used Twitter. So did the reformist candidate Mohammad Aref. And indeed, so did the Supreme Leader. Because this hardest of hardliners has been on Facebook since 2010, and his office has been putting out tweets not only in Farsi, but in English and in Arabic. In other words, political figures realized that in the 21st century, social media could not be cut off. It was an essential form of communication. 2. Internet freedom and a political fight. The backdrop to this story, which has been going on for weeks, is that President Rouhani has been trying to establish his authority against other forces in Iran, such as the Revolutionary Guards. Rouhani is using Twitter, he's using Facebook, he's put all of his cabinet on Facebook to spread his message of moderation, engagement, and reform. The Revolutionary Guards, who are not quite so keen on moderation, say, in the Syrian conflict, or over the nuclear issue, the Revolutionary Guard, who have extensive economic and political interest inside Iran, well, they may not want to be so engaged. So they have their own media outlets, and yes, their own Twitter and Facebook accounts. So do other factions. The Foreign Ministry, the Supreme Leader's Office, key members of Parliament. In other words, social media is not shut down. It's being used in different ways for a fight within the regime. But you can't use social media to fight if people can't access the accounts. And that brings us to the Iranian bureaucracy. Control of the internet has been so tight that there's even a special Supreme Council on Cyberspace to regulate websites. They go through systematically to decide which are good, which are bad, who's been nice, who's been naughty, and they restrict them. What happened this week is that the order went down from someone, we don't know who, to go back to square one. Twitter, Facebook, and websites, including EA Worldview, would be unblocked so that people could use them, not necessarily for freedom, but for their political agendas. But then comes the sequel. On Tuesday, 24 hours after this decision was taken, Twitter and Facebook were again blocked in Iran. Our website and other websites can still be accessed, but we don't know for how long. In other words, it's nice to talk about internet freedom and Twitter revolutions, but at the end of the day, the key issue in Iran is the fight for political authority. President Rouhani, who spoke in his campaign about lifting censorship because it believes it will be for the good of Iran, wants that authority. The Revolutionary Guards, who are not as keen on lifting censorship, also want that authority. And that is where the internet will be decided, rather than on some type of hope, utopian hope, that Iran is now free. I'm Scott Lucas, and this is today's EA Worldview on Iran.